Welcome back to our General Awareness course on the transportation of dangerous goods and regulations. In this module, we will discuss two things: emergency response assistance plans and reporting. As I've said before, transportation of dangerous goods is all about emergency response. So far, we've discussed topics that essentially deal with planning for emergencies. Now I want to discuss actually responding to emergencies. We've referred to emergency response assistance plans, or ERAPs, at many points in this course. But what is an emergency response assistance plan? An emergency response assistance plan outlines how you will respond to an actual or anticipated release of dangerous goods during their handling or transporting that endangers or could endanger public safety. Now, the regulations say that no person shall transport or offer for transport dangerous goods in a quantity or concentration that is specified by regulation, unless that person has an approved emergency response assistance plan. So where are the quantities and concentrations specified? Why, Schedule 1, of course. And here's the Schedule 1 entry for liquefied petroleum gas. This is a catch-all category that is often used for propane. And looking under column 7, we see an ERAP index of 3,000. This index is the quantity above which an approved ERAP is required. And what about units? ERAP indices are in kilograms for solids, liters for liquids, and for gases as the capacity in liters of the means of containment. And as our liquefied petroleum gas is, well, liquid, it is measured in liters. And if the column is empty, then an ERAP is never required. So any shipment of more than 3,000 liters of liquefied petroleum gas requires an ERAP. There are several times when you need an ERAP. While the participant guide has a complete list, here are some of the more common ones. You need to have an ERAP if you have dangerous goods of the same UN number in a single means of containment and exceeding the limit in Schedule 1. Or you have more than one large means of containment and the total quantity of dangerous goods exceeds the ERAP limit. Or you are transporting by road or rail in more than one means of containment, a quantity that exceeds the ERAP limit, and they're either flammable liquids with a subsidiary class of 6.1, like methanol, or they are 6.1 toxic substances included in Packing Group 1. When shipping by tank cars, you need an ERAP if the tank cars have a capacity greater than 10,000 liters, and you are shipping ethanol or ethanol gas mixtures, gasoline, diesel, crude oil, or alcohols. This section requires an ERAP despite the fact that Schedule 1 says that gasoline and several other products listed here should not need one. And to give you an idea of scale, the pictured rail car has a capacity of 131,000 liters, while a road tanker trucks vary from 11,000 to 42,000 liters. While ERAPs are usually required by carriers, in many cases the carriers do not have in-depth knowledge of what they are carrying. Thus, we have an exemption. Carriers can use someone else's ERAP with the other person's written permission. In these cases, the shipping document must list an ERAP number and telephone number of the person or organization who holds the ERAP. In cases where a carrier uses someone else's ERAP, the ERAP holder must let Transport Canada know who else can use it. That said, the carrier is still responsible for emergency response. Now, an ERAP covers a wide range of issues, all of which are listed in the participant guide and the regulations. Some of them are the classification of dangerous goods to which the ERAP relates, and the mode of transport used, the frequency of transport of the dangerous goods, type and specification of the means of containment, a detailed list of emergency equipment and its location to handle any spills, and measures that can be taken in response to a release or anticipated release. An ERAP would be triggered whenever there is a release or anticipated release of dangerous goods. That said, very small releases would have very small responses. In almost all cases, when an ERAP is triggered, you must report the fact to the holder of the ERAP. The regulations and your participant guide have a detailed list of what must be reported. And lastly, if the release requires a larger response than simply the driver or local personnel cleaning up the spill, you must send an ERAP implementation report to the Canadian Transport Emergency Centre, better known as CANUTEC. Once again, the regulations and your participant guide have a detailed list of what must be reported. And that is it for emergency response plans. We'll now turn to other reporting under the Transportation of Dangerous Goods regulations. Under the TDG rules, when do you need to report anything to the government? Well, aside from site registration, which we will discuss in the next module, you only need to report if something bad happens. That is, there is a spill or release or an anticipated spill or release over the limits set out in the regulations, or there has been a theft or interference. And who must report? Any person who has the charge, management, or control of the means of containment at the time of the event. This will usually be the carrier, but it may be a spill on site while waiting for transport, in which case the consignor should make the report. And what are the reporting limits? As shown in the table on the slide and in your participant guide, they vary by class and packing group. There are several possible TDG reports, including an emergency report, release or anticipated release report, 30-day follow-up report, 30-day follow-up report update, loss or theft report, and unlawful interference report. Talking about the first four, dealing with actual or anticipated releases, an emergency report must be filed with a local authority, usually the fire department, as soon as possible. Following that, you must send CANUTEC, the consignor, and possibly others, a release or anticipated release report. A month after the incident, you must send the Transport Canada Director General a 30-day follow-up report, possibly followed by updates. Again, the TDG regulations lay out what must be in each report. But to give you an idea of what must be included, an emergency report must have your name and contact information, date, time, and geographic location of the release or incident that led to the anticipated release, the mode of transport used, the shipping name or UN number of the dangerous goods, the quantity of dangerous goods, the quantity of dangerous goods estimated to have been released, and the type of incident leading to the release. And we all know that incidents happen, and small incidents happen more often. Does Transport Canada want to know about every little spill? The quick answer is no. The regulations state that no release or anticipated release report is required unless the release or anticipated release resulted in the death of a person, anyone sustaining injuries that required immediate treatment, evacuation of people or their shelter in place, the closure of a facility used in the loading and unloading of dangerous goods, or a road or main railway line, or a main waterway. An exception to these rules are whenever means of containment has been damaged to the extent that its integrity is compromised, or the center seal or stub seal of a tank car is broken, or there is a 15-centimeter crack or greater in the metal. In these more serious cases, a release or anticipated release report is required regardless of the size of the spill. Now note these are exemptions only from the release or anticipated release report. The emergency report must still be filled out in all cases. Going beyond spills, Transport Canada wants to know about losses and theft, and they want a follow-up report. You recover the lost or stolen material. Does this mean that I must report to Transport Canada if I misplace a gasoline can? No, there are limits. Transport Canada does want to know about any loss or theft of some things, like explosives, toxic gases, and other toxic substances, infectious substances, and radioactive materials. Some logical items. And they want to hear from you if you lose or have stolen 450 kilograms or more of flammable gases, desensitized explosives, oxidizing substances, or corrosives. As flammable liquids, the only category where you find gasoline, is not on the list. You do not need to report your misplaced gas can. Lastly, we have an unlawful interference report. Transportation of dangerous goods regulations never actually define unlawful interference. However, examples given by Transport Canada include a cylinder valve that is purposely damaged or altered, finding dangerous goods in a container that does not match the safety marks displayed on it. An example is ammonia, sometimes used for making illegal drugs, being hidden in propane cylinders. A means of containment is purposely damaged or altered. The composition of dangerous goods in a container is purposely altered to lower their value, or shipping document information is purposely altered. As in most cases, the Transportation of Dangerous Goods regulations list the detailed contents for loss and theft and unlawful interference reports. And that concludes our discussion of emergency response assistance plans and reporting. I invite you now to move on to Module 8, where we will discuss site registration.